Style Fly will be presenting the stories behind the most beautiful, interesting and compelling creations in contemporary design, fashion and pop culture. From New York City to Stockholm, London and back here in Melbourne. Join us as we explore the far-reaching influence of style.
I was born in Maracaibo in Venezuela a long time ago, maybe 300 years. I come from a background of bohemians. There are artists and architects and tailors and sculptors and painters and poets on both sides of the family. So I had a tremendous, rich wealth of genes to choose from when I was choosing who I was going to be born to. The core thing that started me off, which was that I loved making things and I loved creating. And I started making little tiny sculptures out of polyclay, very, very colourful. And I made little tiny dancers and little tiny hands and whole necklaces full of dancers and acrobats and trapeze artists. And that sort of grew and grew until I'd stopped. I was still using polyclay, but I'd stopped making figurative works like hands and dancers and so on, acrobats. But I started just cutting shapes, making shapes, and sticking stones on them. And what I do like to get inspired by in jewelry is how something was made. That's how I've learnt jewelry making, because I'm totally self-taught by looking at how good quality jewelry was made. And my mother was a couturier and a fashion designer before the war broke out. And when she died, she had a huge collection, 8,000 pieces of vintage and historic costumes and couture, which she had collected over the period of about 40 years or so. And I saw some things in that which made me cry. They were so beautiful, and they were all mostly handmade. And I thought, this is women's history that's happened here. And women, mostly women, would sit around probably beading these things. I pick a lot of things up just in op shops and things like that, and then I like to mix them in with new things. A lot of my things I use plastic and glass and check glass, and then there's these strange Chinese kind of woven beads and crystal, and so I love to mix odd things together. Nearly all the pieces have got some story to them. These little blue beads here are Art Deco glass, beautiful Art Deco glass, and these pieces here were bought in the desert in Afghanistan. And these are just really crazy plastic beads that I found when I was in London, and I think they're Chinese, but I just love them because they remind me of ping pong ball or game. They look like toys to me, and I just love the colours. I think they're amazing. Very often when people first see my jewellery, they don't really understand it and they think it looks really crazy or weird or something, and then they put it on and they get it. Straight away they get it because it's made to go on the body. But really my jewellery is not about pretty. It's more about a deeper spirituality. It's more about beauty, which is a different quality from pretty. It's not just decorative, it's actually a lot more than that, I hope.
The Made in Hollywood exhibition is drawn from the extensive archives of pioneering Hollywood historian John Coble. The exhibition features portraiture from the industry's golden age, the period 1920 to 1960, and showcases some of the career-defining images of some of the biggest names in the biz, including Marilyn Monroe, Greta Garbo, and my personal favourite, Audrey Hepburn. But does glamour only exist in old black and white movies? Or is there a place for glamour in our modern lives? We head into Melbourne's hottest new venue, Bar Ampere, to ask you whether glamour is simply a thing of the past.
I don't think it only exists in film. I think it's about the personal touches that bring glamour to an overall look that someone has, and I think it definitely exists in modern life, yeah.
A lot of the glamour in today's sort of day and age is very personal. So it's up to the individual and what they take from the past and from the glamorous icons like Marilyn Monroe.
I think that the word glamour immediately has connotations of bewitching beauty and having that ability to cast a spell on somebody, whether it be via your personality or your physical attributes.
Confidence can be not necessarily being loud or being crass or overt or showing too much, but it could be just wearing jeans and a cool jumper, and that's it. If you wear it well, you wear it well.
And that's the start of it. That's where style is, and glamour follows with that.
Especially in a contemporary sense now, there's a lot of kind of fake, what we would describe as glamour.
But if you're not truly comfortable and you're not truly confident in that outfit, that's going to show, it's going to come across, right? And it's going to be clumsy, right? So glamour's not going to happen for you, I'm afraid.
The truly glamorous women that I've known, they live and breathe it. It is part of who they are and part of what makes them really beautiful.
They're born this way, huh?
Yeah.
I think that you can be glamorous simply by sitting around in your own home wearing a cashmere sweater and a diamond ring.
So you could be glamorous in your living room sitting at home.
Definitely.
Class, sexy and confident.
I think if you are wearing something or doing something that is luxurious to you, that's glamorous, whether someone is around for it or not.
Style is when you can throw on, a simple piece of item and just ooze it, You can just ooze sex appeal, style, that sort of confidence that comes with knowing yourself. Right? And then you've got someone who's all glitz up to the hill. Just end up looking like tinsel.
The men in Melbourne invest a lot more time in old Hollywood style glamour and aesthetics than women do, strictly because it's easier for them.
It exists in streetwear, it exists in the higher end wear, dress wear. It's not hard to look for. Melbourne's a great city that way. You can look in every corner and there will be something glamorous about it.
I think it's very much about picking and choosing from the icons that you admire and mixing it with your own tastes and ideas.
Lady Gaga is a very big inspiration, and it's not so much her glamorous wardrobe, but more of the way she carries herself. I think it's her overall personality that does have the glamour sort of shine through, because I don't have big hair bows or meat dresses, but it is a lot about the way that she sort of shows herself to people, and her overall personality is very glamorous.
Blair Waldorf from Gossip Girl.
Love Blair.
Yeah, I love her.
You've got a little bit of Blair in you, I think.
Thank you.
We're about to step into one of Australia's leading retailers of contemporary design. For over 22 years, Luke Furniture has been showcasing some of the biggest names in interior design. And they don't get much more exciting than the Swedish design duo behind the Massproductions brand. Chris Martin and Magnus Elborg's style is a reconciliation of environmental legitimacy with exciting design. Statesmen of dignified simplicity with a functional modernist spirit, the duo have been working together as consultants since 1999. They formed the Massproductions brand in 2009 and have never looked back, manufacturing elegant timeless pieces such as the Jig armchair and the Crown chair. We've got one half of the Massproductions duo joining us on the line from Stockholm. Chris Martin, thanks so much for joining us. The pieces of Massproductions tend to have a strong sculptural influence. Are either yourself or Magnus influenced by any specific art forms?
Perhaps certain sculptural ideas could have a direct influence on my design, less so for music, but both are very important to me though, and the ideas and spirit of these art forms can both inspire and influence the working process.
Now, I understand that you are responsible for conceptualising the design, while Magnus has the strong business instinct. How do you manage to work together?
Magnus is a designer too, and we always work together in the development stage of a project. My passion and background is furniture design, so I'm really responsible for the concepts for the furniture, and then we develop it together. Magnus is much broader in his interests, and that includes the business side of things.
Do you see there is an opportunity for mass production in the world of high-end furniture design? And did you have to carry out much research in new production techniques and processes?
I don't really know what high-end means in a way. We just try and find the right process and production technique and material to make good furniture, and take it on a case-by-case situation.
Do you have any concerns about the quality of mass-produced furniture design? And do you think it's possible to produce high-end products at a decent price?
Some people get put off by the word mass production, but for us it's not a negative thing. The most sophisticated and finest design products that we live with are more often than not mass produced. That's the secret of good design to me, is to harness the potential of volume production to get a good product at a good price and reach many people with it.
Do you have interest in designing any other areas, such as clothing or jewellery?
I'd say that I'm pretty much focused on furniture. That's my background. I did a master's degree in furniture design at the Royal College of Art, and I've worked for Jasper Morrison for 1 year. That's my main focus. I'm pretty much a one-trick pony. But I don't know, maybe in the future, if I get bored with furniture, which hasn't happened yet, I could try something else. Maybe it would be nice to design a watch. I think that's as close as I could get to jewellery though.
Removing filters from a traditional production process is a great move forward for design. How would you describe your typical design day?
It's a struggle. Sketching, considering, rejecting ideas, getting excited and getting disappointed, hopefully ending up with something built in the computer that's worth pursuing in the factory, or at least worth discussing with Magnus at the end of the day.
How do you condense the plethora of design influences?
When I look at what's going on in the design world, there's so many ideas presented and so often that it's really overwhelming. A lot of it is kind of mediocre or repeated work, so it doesn't have so much influential effect. You kind of forget about it by the next day because the pace is so fast. Sometimes truly interesting work comes along and that's quite rare, but when you find it, you do cherish it.
Thanks so much for your time today, Chris Martin. Well, Melbourne is a city teeming with stylish people, but all too often it neglects the bespoke heroes of our town, the men. With a recent surge in classic style, our streets are dotted with men sporting sharp suiting and bold accessories. And you've got to hand it to them, these men certainly know how to make a suave statement. Richard Nylon, a Melbourne style staple, is a milliner by trade, but is widely recognised for his distinct personal style and, of course, fantastic headwear. Richard!
Miss Ampere, Renae.
So lovely to see you.
And you too, in your gorgeous orange.
Now, being one of Melbourne's most fashionable gentlemen, what does style mean to you?
Style for me is about how I personally express myself. So what's happening on the outside isn't necessarily what's going on the inside, but I'm just perhaps a little bit more brave than most men are with my personal style. I don't expect men to dress as I do particularly, but I just wish men would embrace style a little more. You know, there's more to life than a jeans and a t-shirt.
So what do you think some of the best tips are for our gentlemen of Melbourne?
Well, men of Melbourne, if you want to be noticed, wear a hat. And I can tell you, women love men in hats. It doesn't have to be, you know, an extended bowler like this one. Just a nice flat cap or a smart trilby. It can be a beret, something like that. It adds a certain elan and a certain spice.
Now let's talk for 1 minute about your manicured facial hair.
My little curly mo. Look, when I was a very young man, nobody wore a beard. There was no facial hair. Cut on the road of your makeup for a start. And now it's really become a thing, and that's wonderful to see. It also means there's a growth in barber shops as well. Like a barber used to mean, you know, in the 80s and early 90s and into the early 2000s, an old Greek guy sitting on one chair reading a newspaper waiting for his old Greek mates to come in. But now a barber shop is a place where younger men will go to have their faces manicured and, you know, get direction about how to, you know, look after a curly mo or an extravagant beard or something like that. And it really is a huge trend. Years ago you wouldn't see a beard on a catwalk. Now you see lots of beards and fantastic facial hair on catwalks, particularly Jean Gaultier and designers like that. Now men have the option of doing that.
Let's get on to one of my favourite topics, Richard, shoes.
We're standing outside at Prada here in Collins Street at the moment, and the Prada shoes have taken influences from history, you know, that Mad Men thing. One side of Mad Men was all that 50s very sculpted menswear. The other side of the 50s was a crazy rock and roll. And Prada looked to rock and roll. The menswear is very skinny with the skinny ties and the very uptight little hanky in the pocket. And that trend is still going on. But I think we're seeing a trend more towards as far as menswear goes, back to double-breasted jackets. And but women's wear is always ahead of menswear.
Right.
And menswear, when women's wear leads, menswear will follow a few seasons later.
Where do you get all your inspiration?
I love actually physically turning the pages of a book. And I take a photograph with my phone, take a photograph of any picture I like the look of, and that gets loaded onto the computer. But also seeing things on people in the street too, I think, oh, that's a good idea.
Right.
You know, and I've got these old Doc Marten boots that I always used to wear laced up, and they're sort of knee-high, but now I saw a young man on the street wearing his boots all pulled down.
Scrunched down?
Yeah, so scrunched down, and I thought, oh, that looked really good. And I scrunched them down, I thought, what am I going to do with all these laces? So I wrapped all the laces around and around and around, and I wore them to a fashion event the other night, and there was these bloggers taking photographs of them, and I said, just an old Doc Martens, they're nothing fantastic.
So, what does it mean to be a gentleman of Melbourne? It's a revival of the groomed look. Manicured facial hair, classic chinos rolled at the ankle, not to mention a playful bow tie. And vintage-inspired eyewear is making a serious comeback, with brands like Oliver Peoples and Paul Taylor creating new spins on classic shapes. So the best thing about this style renaissance is that the streets of Melbourne are set to be flooded with more men channeling throwbacks to Gregory Peck and Warren Beatty. And you definitely won't hear me complaining about that.
Founded in 2008, Street Etiquette is a style blog that approaches personal style from an urban perspective. With sartorial influences stretching over many areas and eras of fashion, owners Joshua Kissy and Travis Gums combined to publish a truly unique vision of fashionable menswear.
We are the intellectual prep. Preparing the steps for success, dressed in the attire that evidently reflects a sustenance farmer cultivating his harvest. So we sow the ivy, invoke our flavor and reap cool. In a form pure and unblemished, never yet always fabricated, a riddle that explains our genuine character, simultaneously underlining the attention we have for style and fabrication.
From Harlem to Canal Street to Nairobi to Argentina, Street Etiquette covers the African American style phenomenon for men.
And I'm talking about a league of extraordinary gents that represent the roots of Howard, Morehouse, Spelman to present a spellbinding, riveting visual display of the reintroduced, refined, cultured male. Pledging to learn for eternity, never allowing negativity to define me. Session 1, year 1, class begins with the black ivy.
Featured in magazines such as GQ and Complex and ranked a best men's style blog by The Guardian, Street Etiquette has also been named among the 40 bloggers who really count by the London Times.